come on inside. Taking that ride to nowhere. We'll take that ride. I'm feeling okay this morning. And you know, we're on the road to paradise. Here we go, here we go. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. Would you like to come along, and you can help me sing this song, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. There's a city in my mind. Come along and take that ride, and it's alright, baby, it's alright. And it's very far away, but it's growing day by day. It's alright, baby, it's alright. They could tell you what to do, but they'll make a fool of you, and it's alright, baby, it's alright.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Excuse my my texting. I'm just posting the link on the Facebook.
Cool, yeah.
I'm
just texting as well.
Okay, I'm texting with someone. You guys caught me. So how are ya? What's going on, you guys?
Just living, kicking ass, and taking names, and the usual.
I see Luke D already in the comments. Here's my girl.
Yes.
How about yourself,
what
Joy?
What do we have this week?
Well,
there's a lot of shit going on. It's hard to narrow it down sometimes.
Indeed. It's like every morning you wake up, it's like, which area of the world is aflame, literally or metaphorically, at this current moment?
Or like, which one is the biggest flame?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's basically what we're going to be talking about for this show.
All right.
A lot of things aflame, and then we're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard. Same.
Imperialism,
same.
Imperialism and with an attractive face is still imperialism. Sorry.
No. Oh.
Attractive imperialism.
I have thoughts about that, but I'm going to just.
I'm just saying. Look, every fucking time I call Tulsi out, someone in the comments is like, "She's hot."
Yeah.
What the fuck do I give a so? I know. I've met her. She's beautiful. She's so up. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. All right, what we got?
So what I'm going to start first, and just so that both of you know, this is going to be. I'm gonna be going through a lot of different things before we talk about this, because I'm gonna be building up. I'm gonna be doing things a little differently than I do other weeks. I'm gonna build this up a little bit.
Build up the suspense a little.
Yeah,
a little political edging.
A little.
Yeah.
Anywho,
I'm so hashtagging political edging.
Please do.
One sentence at a time.
So it's funny because what I'm going to be talking about is extremely serious. So like we're getting the laughs out of the way right now.
Yeah. We always got to start off, a
lot of intense shit going on. So I want to really make clear here that and I think I like to think that our viewers are a little bit more, intelligent and nuanced than typically people are, like, brainwashed corporate media watchers are. But first, I want to say that what I'm about to talk about, okay, I am in no way defending the Ukrainian government. I am in no way defending Putin. I am completely focusing this on human beings because human beings are the people who suffer the most from war in one way or another. All right. War has always been oligarchs getting their money and resources that they want. And then as a result of that, it's the people who suffer from it, right?
Yeah.
Many people who suffer are not even involved in the war at all. They have families, they have, aspirations, and they, end up getting killed because people decide to invade their territory, right? And so that is just something I want to kind of make clear before we get into this. Now, Zelensky of Ukraine has said, as we know on Thursday, right, at least 137 people have been killed and 316 injured after Russian invasion on Thursday. Okay, now let's just take a look at the Russians, the anti-war protesters happening right here. Give me a second to share my screen. It's always a process.
Andrew just turned into a robot. You'll have to excuse us. It is always a process.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. I just had a really intense conference call on the event I'm co-organizing, so I'm just kind of trying to let loose a little here and there.
Please. Always welcomed.
All right. Oh, not really too much, analysis needed on this video. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Are they saying like no more war, or what are they saying?
Like no war, no, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they are all protesting against, war, and and all the civilians that were killed on that time, right? And I see so many people on Twitter who are talking about how it's wrong that so many people are dying in war. So I would like to pull up some numbers and statistics here that might be surprising to people because these are numbers we don't talk about really at all. So as you can see, this is the Watson Institute of International and Public Affairs at Brown University cost of war. And right here, they break down the numbers of casualties that have been happening from the war in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, other. Okay. So a couple of things I want to quickly highlight here. For the U.S. military, right? 2,324 soldiers have died in Afghanistan, none in Pakistan, 4,598 in Iraq, none in Syria, none in Yemen, right? Because we talk about, being away from the war there, right? 7,052. Okay. Now let's talk about civilians that have died in these countries, okay? In Afghanistan all these years. 46,319 in Afghanistan. 24,099 in Pakistan. At a range in Iraq, it's a range from 185,000 to 831 to 208,964. 95,000 in Syria. Remember that number. Yemen, 12,690.
That's a lot.
Okay. That is a range from 363,939 to 387,072 civilians that have died with an accumulation of all these wars. That's the size of a solid mid-sized city. Okay. Just to give a little bit of context there. Okay. And so think about how in Russia, we have thousands and thousands of people on the street protesting the fact that 137 people were killed, right? Which is awful. Okay. And now take a look at all these numbers in all these other countries, right? This is not a whataboutism. This is just showing the data here because I think it's important that we know it and own it. Okay. Now I'm going to switch. And I'm going to share, well, first of all, before I share this article, I want to talk about, it's called the Topka Dam. It's a massive 18-story structure on the Euphrates River in Syria that holds back a 25-mile-long reservoir above a valley home to hundreds of thousands of people. And it is controlled by the Islamic State. And so, despite it being agreed that the United States would not touch that that area. On March 26, 2017, a series of bombs dropped on the entire dam. Luckily, one of the bombs was a dud, but it caused the water to rise very high to the point where it almost rose and flooded the whole area. People had to evacuate, but luckily one bomb didn't go off the way it was supposed to, and they were able to make it so that that didn't happen. Now, give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. So after that, all of that whole instance happened on March 26, 2017, the Islamic State, the Syrian government, and Russia blamed the United States, but the dam was on the U.S. military's no-strike list of protecting civilian sites and the commander of the U.S. offensive at the time. Then Lieutenant General Stephen J. Townsend said allegations of U.S. involvement were based on crazy reporting. The Topka, so of course they denied it at the time. The Topka Dam is not a coalition target, he declared emphatically 2 days after the blast. In fact, members of a top secret U.S. Special Operations Unit called Task Force 9 had struck the dam using some of the largest conventional bombs in the U.S. arsenal, including at least one BLU-109 bunker buster bomb designed to destroy thick concrete structures, according to two former senior officials. And they had done it despite a military report warning not to bomb the dam because the damage could cause a flood that might kill tens of thousands of civilians. The revelation of Task 9's role in the assault on the Topka Dam follows a pattern described in previous times' investigations. As the newspaper noted on Thursday, the unit routinely circumvented the rigorous airstrike approval process and hit Islamic State targets in Syria in a way that repeatedly puts civilians at risk. In response to questions from the Times, U.S. Central Command, which oversaw the air war in Syria, acknowledged dropping 3 2000 bombs but denied targeting the dam on sidestepping procedures. A spokesman said that the bombs hit only the towers attached to the dam, not the dam itself. And while top leaders had not been notified beforehand, limited strikes on the towers had been pre-approved by the command. Analysis had confirmed that strikes on the towers attached to the dam were not considered likely to cause structural damage to the Topka Dam itself, noting that the dam did not collapse. The analysis has proved accurate. However, Syrian witnesses interviewed by the Times and two former U.S. officials who were directly involved in the air war at the time said the situation was far graver than the Pentagon let on, of course. Critical equipment lay in ruins and the dam stopped functioning entirely. The reservoir quickly rose 50 feet and nearly spilled over the dam, which engineers said would have been catastrophic. The situation grew so desperate that authorities at dams upstream in Turkey cut water flow into Syria to buy time. And sworn enemies in the years-long conflict, the Islamic State, the Syrian government, Syria's defense forces, and the United States called a rare emergency ceasefire so civilian engineers could race to avert a disaster. Engineers who worked at the dam who did not want to be identified because they feared reprisal said it was only through quick work, much of it made at gunpoint as opposing forces looked on, that the dam and the people living downstream of it were saved. The destruction would have been unimaginable, said the former director at the dam. The number of casualties would have exceeded the number of Syrians who have died throughout the war. 95,000. They're saying the amount of people who could have died from that surpassed 95,000. Okay? So this, I think it's good that we are specific when we're talking about how this could have been a complete disaster. No one's talking about it. Hardly anybody's talking about it now. And here we are looking at Russia as uniquely evil in what they're doing to Ukraine, while completely ignoring all of the things that we have done, that America has done to these countries and continues to do to this day. And so during the summer, we saw sort of what an anti-war protest looks like in Russia. Okay. Let's just take a look at what anti-war protests look like here. All right. And so here we go. So this is actually Franco who recorded this, End the Damn Wars March. I'm just going to play the beginning of it.
And this is DC, just as a heads up.
Yes, this is DC, where, usually if you're going to have protests like this, it's going to be the most in DC. And the most you really see is Franco's fingers on the camera. Some people in the distance. All right, come on, keep that camera steady. All right, anyway. We get the point. Okay, so.
And that was publicized for months. I had them on my show. They made their rounds on tons of shows. It was in DC. You're talking about End the Wars, and it was in DC. And that's how few people showed up.
Wow.
Exactly. And so I think kind of my follow-up question to kind of both of you, as you kind of process all of this information, is why the double standard? First of all, why are we seeing the double standard where suddenly people are being cognizant of the fact that civilians are being killed due to what Putin did on Thursday? And do you think has anything to do with maybe USA propaganda? Does it have to do with American exceptionalism, white supremacy? Curious to hear kind of your thoughts on sort of why such a stark difference when disproportionately the people who have been killed have been due to America.
Yeah. I mean, so the answer to all of your rhetoricals is yes, because yes, it is all of those. But so, okay, two things. First, to deal with that, we don't ever, they never publish those numbers, right? And so, to be charitable to the average American, especially, ones who watch the news and who consider themselves learned and paying attention, they never see those numbers. That's not talked about on a loop on the 24-hour news cycle like it is, like what's going on right now is, right? And I will also say that, to be fair, again, and charitable, what is happening now does pose a potential larger threat because it's people who could fight back. Because that's it's really what it is in addition to all that stuff, for me, one thing it all comes back to, because we're going to talk about some of the other elements later, but one of the things it really comes back to is selfishness, where it's just like, shit, this might affect me. We got to stop this, you know, where, and it's like, because like, and America, because of like, you know, the fact that, look, you know, I always say one of the biggest reasons we don't need a giant military or defense is because we have the two biggest defense devices ever conceived. It's the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. We don't have to worry about war coming to our doorstep. And so we only start worrying when it's something that maybe could possibly have blowback on us. And so, you know, nuclear armed superpowers, it's like, you know, that threat should not be underplayed. Absolutely. But that also speaks to why Americans don't really, you know, like, first of all, they're not being told. Second of all, they're also told like, well, that just, it always happens there. Like, what can you do? You know, and this is new. So the other thing that Americans are is we like a shiny new thing, something that seems novel. We pay lots of attention to that, you know? So like, I guess I'm not really being charitable. It's all kind of an indictment of the way that we are, but like, it's an indictment based on a bunch of things that aren't individual Americans' problem. Like, not, well, it's our problem. It's not our fault, but it's definitely our problem. And we don't take it as such. And one other tiny, like, little bit of, I don't know if I'd call this nuance, but, and I'll probably talk about this later, but I think the days of marching are over, especially in America, because nobody gives a shit. Not a single politician. We could have 4 billion people in the street and not a damn thing would change, because until Raytheon says stop, they're not going to stop. They don't care. So in Russia, you do have some politicians, right, who are like, yeah, the Russian president's a fucking madman. You know, it's like there are some conscientious objectors within the Russian government that are like, yeah, like we can't have this. So protesting there, especially since like they have guts, because I mean, don't get me wrong, like the Black Lives Matter protesters, if you're protesting for people of color in this country, you might get jacked up. But like the big, like the climate marches and like the women's march, like there's no danger in it really, which is, I guess, even going back to what you said, even more of an indictment as to people not marching, right? Because like there's no danger for like a bunch of white people marching for like when there's not actually any action going to be taken for something. So it's I mean, it's complicated and there's a lot of like pieces to it, but yeah, I mean, we're in a sad state of affairs.
Absolutely. I wanted to look something up before I answered this, and the first thing to me that stands out as to why people care about this more than other wars is that 81% of Russians are white Russians. So when you're talking about Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and places like that in Syria, those people are brown. They're black and brown people. We don't care about them. Like, we just don't. And even if it's, you know, people unconsciously doing it, it still is ingrained in us as Americans that we care way more about people who look like us. Let's put it that way. So that was the first thing I thought of. And then the other thing is, like, I'm just going to be straight up. As far as social media, like, I legit think people are like on this because they're like Hillary. They're like Queen Hillary, fuck Trump, Trump and Putin, Putin's with Trump, and Hillary and Putin cost Hillary the election, and fuck Putin, and Putin's evil. And you've seen their xenophobia against Russian people for 6 years. Yeah. Everyone they don't like, you're Russian. You're Russian. You're Russian. Used as a pejorative every freaking day for 6 years. And now they get to capitalize on that. You know what I mean? They get to be like, see, all of them are rotten people. They're awful. I told you, you know, and it's very much trying to, convince themselves that what they were saying all along is legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it might even be like kind of darker than that too. Like, is it the cart before the horse, or is it like is the cart coming after the horse they've been pulling, right? Like have they been pulling the Russia narrative because they intended to continue provoking until something popped off, because that's also on the board as well. And who knows, right? And who knows? But yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
And shout out to Indie News Network, a big supporter of ours. They wrote an article about 2 days ago, which shared screenshots that were being, going around social media as complete propaganda. It was pictures from years ago. What's that say? I can't see.
Lots of quiet part out loud and mask off going on.
Oh, yeah. There were pictures that were from years ago, pictures that were from different countries, and just going around like, look at what's going on, and, just used for whatever side, to look, this is why I stand with XYZ, because this is what they're doing. And you see it all the time. And then you see, these fucking, Abbies, these, profile pics on Twitter and Facebook with like the heart is like a yellow and blue heart for the
Ukrainian flag. Yeah.
And stuff. And I'm like, it just brings you back to like all those times. Like, remember when like people had like a Paris Avi and like all these
Notre
times,
Dame, yep.
and, like a week later they take it down and they're like, now what do we need? Oh my God, what's the next thing?
Yes.
Yes. And it's like,
totally.
You are not helping people with your fucking picture on social media. Like, like Andrew, you did a freaking excellent job researching this. Like, more people need to do this. And that is what is going to change things, not, a fucking yellow and blue heart.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I would say, I totally agree, except I do think that if, for example, if all of those people would do the same thing for something that wasn't being covered, something that wasn't popular, that actually was raising awareness rather than just echoing the mainstream narrative, then maybe it actually could. Because that's the thing they're doing. What they're doing is they are doing the mainstream version, basically, of because I don't believe that social media activism is useless, because I think social media it's our collective unconscious, and it's like and that's why everybody's talking about it, and that's why it's a good time to bring attention to other things while people are finally talking about politics again, right? But what they're doing is they're tourists in their own involvement in what politics is, because they've been taught that, well, how do we get involved in politics? We vote. And if we're not voting, then there's nothing else possibly to do except for change your avatar. That's the only, in the mainstream American mind, that's all that's acceptable. And why is that? It's because that's how they want us to think. They want us to believe that the only way we can affect change is either the ballot box, or raising awareness, or writing a letter to a senator that it doesn't give one single shit about any of it.
Harris even said today, she was just like, voting matters and it makes a difference. I mean, they say, I see signs all the time, actually, even here in Boston, that just say, just vote. Right?
Yeah. People voted for your ass and you just took us to fucking World War III. What the fuck?
Right. And it literally just, the just part just speaks volumes, because you're literally telling people, just don't worry about anything.
That's exactly
just
it.
vote. Yeah. And then go to sleep.
And that was a very charmless speech she gave.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't watch it. Did it sound like she was drunk or on pills?
Both.
Yeah. Listen, you guys, let me tell you something. You need to just get out, okay? Just do that, okay?
I wanted to.
I mean, and honestly, shout out to fucking Pussy Riot, man.
Oh
Pussy
yeah.
Riot's fucking badass bees. They are, Andrew, you probably don't know who that is. Logan, I know you knew.
Absolutely.
They are a punk rock chick band from Russia who has been imprisoned. I believe one of them was there for 3 years for speaking out against Russian government.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we talk about like freedom of speech and stuff like that, like, look at Pussy Riot, man. Like, those are badasses. Like, they legit went to prison for
They've been
questioning
arrested
their
so
government.
many times. It's ridiculous.
What's that?
They've been arrested so many times. It's
Oh my
like
God,
it beggars belief.
Yeah. They're freaking badasses.
I wanted to kind of say, before kind of moving on to Logan's portion, I wanted to also kind of bring up that, you know, I think, which goes off of media propaganda, we have been molded to think that no matter what, there's always conflict going on in the Middle East, right? There's always people fighting, right? And yes, and it has to do directly with colonization, right? Over and over and over again. I was actually reading a poll, I believe, that in Shock Doctrine book that Naomi Klein wrote, that in Iraq, I think when they polled people, maybe 15% people said that they wanted religious extremism ruling in Iraq after the invasion, after America invaded. That went up, don't quote me, but I think it went up to like at least 60%, right? And so, but the media never talks about that. They talk about the conflict, but they don't talk about how it relates to why it's happening, right? And so it desensitizes us to thinking that no matter what, they're always going to be at war. It's just long gone. They just do what they do, right? But Europe, you know, there's been, since World War II, everything's been great, and oh my God, and so it really is fascinating how they really are able to manipulate those such. Yes, white supremacy is definitely tied into it, but then going into the specifics of it, it's purposely giving misinformation or purposely giving some information, but not giving you the whole context, that you are just meant to, even in just the back of your mind, thinking, no matter what, there's always going to be BS going on over in the Middle East because they hate each other for whatever reason. I don't know why. It has nothing to do with anything that the West has orchestrated in any way. And so,
and piggybacking off of that, in classic abuser, gaslighty, culture, what they do is they inflame a situation, and then they make people become more radical, because that's what happens when you get pushed to desperation, when you get pushed to not care, and when you're like, you know what, you have to be stripped of some basic empathy and humanity in order to be pushed to the point where you're like, you know what, well, fuck it, let's just, let's get this theocracy going and get rid of all the infidels, right? And speaking of which, what I wanted to talk about is started with hashtag Africans in Ukraine. And if you want to show us a couple of those things, and then we'll show you a video. But
and also, I want to see news people go up. If you're going to go to these countries, I want you to go up to citizens and ask them, do you fucking want the United States in here? Do you want us there? Because guess what? They're going to say no, go the fuck home.
Yeah.
I mean,
US
poll after
everywhere.
poll has shown in international polls that America is the #1 biggest threat to world peace that people all around the world have taken. It wasn't Russia, it wasn't China, it wasn't ISIS, it was America by a good amount. I think,
we live on the Death Star.
Yep.
So, in another edition of Arab and Africans Don't Matter, Vanity Fair Journal lives up to descriptor by denying that U.S.-NATO wars on Afghanistan, Libya, and Syria happened in the age of social media. And this Goonie Bird says, one thing Putin grossly underestimated was the power of the internet. This is arguably the first war we've actually seen in real time, take place in the age of social media. And all of these heart-wrenching images make Russia look utterly terrible. Now, Andrew just gave you numbers, and you can go to the next one. Andrew just gave you numbers.
He writes for Vanity Fair? Is that
Yeah.
what he said?
Yeah, for Vanity Fair. And Andrew just gave you numbers on how many people have died as a result of wars that happened during the past like 10 years, right? So what is the quiet part being said here? Let's compile a little bit more evidence, and then we will make it quite clear. But you know, the audacity to say that this is the first war we've seen during the time of social media, it's on its face ridiculous, but again, it's kind of quiet part loud, you know what I mean? But
fire his history teachers, whoever the fuck they are.
Is there another tweet that you want me to show, or is it video?
Yes, video. So now good. Just to set it up, in Ukraine, Black Twitter and in Black spaces, things have been going absolutely bonkers about this, because African people, lots and lots of students, because in Ukraine, their medical schools are good, and they're not that expensive. And so, people from Africa, there's many countries in Africa, obviously, go there for education, and, it's largely fine. But as they were trying to leave, they're being prevented from getting on the trains and from crossing the borders. And people were trying to say that it was like they weren't being allowed to go into the other country, or that they weren't being allowed to leave the country. It was both, depending on where you're talking about. In some places, they weren't allowed to cross the border. There's a video we'll see from Poland where they were not being allowed to cross into Poland, even though like international law and Polish law and all the laws that have been agreed upon say that if you're fleeing war situations, like, come on in. And they were stopping particularly people of African descent, particularly. And you're going to hear, if you look this up, you're going to hear people say something to the effect of, no, they weren't. They were doing women and children first. So like, maybe it was just like African. No, you can see for yourself. Look up that hashtag and you'll see it for yourself. And we're going to show you a little bit of it right now. So it's a little bit difficult to tell what's going on, but you can see that everybody in the back is Black people of African descent. In the front, you have the officers and some Ukrainian people. Keep in mind it's winter. It is very cold. They have been waiting for, some of them, in some cases, like a day or two. And you can see they basically have them surrounded. They have like a phalanx of soldiers, with armed soldiers, preventing these people from getting to the trains. No answer. So, oh yeah, just wait, just hold on. And train after train comes, and they manage not to get anywhere. Please don't do this. Even during a war, even during a time of extreme crisis, Western and European people find a way to be absolutely horrendous to African people, to Black people, right? Racism doesn't take one day off. Couldn't you take one day off? Even, look, and one day I'll do a hot take on how I feel about the whole of women and children first thing, because I think that is it's a relic and something, because families should stay together. Like, if we're talking about an extinction level event for humanity, different story, but whatever. But this wasn't even that. They weren't even following that metric. It was all about just visually, phenotype. Were they white? If they were, they could go. Now, and they weren't checking passports to see if they were Ukrainian people, right? It wasn't even that kind of metric that they were using. Just one. This one right here. That's it. There's another video, the one from Poland. Now this is in Ukraine, where they're not letting them get onto the trains. This one bless you, you're going to see is from the other angle, where they're trying to cross into Poland, which they should be permitted to do, but they are being prevented from doing so. If you can't hear what they're saying we're students, we don't have arms. They are actively pointing guns at them too. And they're saying take out your phones because they know that if it gets bad, they could get shot. So they just want to have evidence and show the world what's happening right there. That's enough of this one. It's basically this for, and he goes on to say they're dying of cold. It's been like 3 days in winter in Ukraine that these people are trying to cross. They're not even from there. They went there for some opportunity, right? It's the thing that you're supposed to do to better your situation, get an education, right? And now, is this uniquely Ukrainian and Polish? Now, here's a little bit of nuance, right? Because you're going to get some people who are like, yes, all the Ukrainians are Nazis. That's not true. But they do have a Nazi element that is part of their fighters. And they're like, well, we're cool with that, right? And there's a shield put up by the fact that Volodymyr Zelensky is Jewish. So they're like, see, there's a Jewish president. Like, it couldn't possibly be racist or have neo-Nazis in there. And that's patently bullshit, right? Because the people, the Azov battalion especially, that's like the hardcore neo-Nazi group. They're fighting for Ukraine, right? So were they to win peace and solidarity for Ukraine, do you think that they would care about Volodymyr Zelensky? No, they would not, right? So there is a lot going on here. But what is the common denominator is that all these countries don't give a shit about anybody brown. And tying back, now, the next thing I'm going to show you is how and why this continues to happen, right? Because people aren't born racist. Racism is the most unnatural thing that we experience, right? If you put two kids together, they'll just become friends, right? It's not until somebody pulls one of them aside and says, you can't be friends with little Johnny. And then we're off to the races, off to the racists. Started about minute 50. And around, no, sorry, not minute 50. 50 seconds. Yeah, that ought to do it.
But they do not see hardships. They only see race, the color of your skin, the color of your hair. Let me show you exhibit number 1. This exchange happened on the BBC, the so-called guardian of unbiased reportage. Listen to how their panel describes the refugees from Ukraine.
It's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed.
People with blue eyes and blonde hair. That is why the so-called expert on the BBC is emotional, not because the people are homeless, not because their country is being invaded, but because their hair is blonde. On social media, a lot of people are defending the BBC. They say it's a guest, not their anchor. Let me take you back to September last year. Another guest was speaking on the very same channel, South Asian expert Christine Fair. She called out Pakistan's links with the Taliban. Do you remember what the BBC presenter did? She shut her down. She said it was violating the channel's unbiased coverage. So exposing terror links is a violation. Blatant racism and white supremacy is fine. Gold standard indeed. Now for exhibit number 2, NBC News from the US. Listen to this.
These are not refugees from Syria. These are Christians, they're white, they're very similar.
What?
Very similar to us. How so? Because the Syrian refugees are Muslims, their skin is darker, their hair is not blonde. So Europe does not want them. And remember, this is not being said at some white supremacy cult. This is happening on live television. Exhibit number 3, CBS News, another American broadcaster. Their reporter is appalled by the war, not because there is death and destruction, but because it is happening in Europe.
Like Iraq or Afghanistan, this is a relatively civilized, relatively European city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
So Iraq and Afghanistan are uncivilized countries. Their people are uncultured. Their regimes are irresponsible. So they deserve war. They deserve hundreds of bombs and years of occupation. What about Ukraine? According to CBS, no. Ukraine does not deserve war or hardships because Ukraine is civilized. And now for the final exhibit. This one is not from the West. It is from Al Jazeera in Qatar. This anchor simply cannot comprehend the idea of European refugees.
What's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm loath to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
We can stop it there. Shout out to this reporter for putting this together like this, and to that channel for saying it.
What is that? Because I want to subscribe.
Gravitas, I believe is the name of it. I can't necessarily vouch for their takes, but whatever.
Or the channel. Were you asking for the person or the channel, Joy?
Well, either one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We'll get
So before I bring you two in, this is how this happens. And it's both a reflection and a manufacturing of consent for white supremacy. And this is the kind of white supremacy that is most insidious, most ubiquitous, and that you will hear from the mouths of most people. Because I'm sure you've heard someone say something like to this effect at some point in your life. It's always crazy in the Middle East. There's always war there. And then you'll hear, let's talk about like NIMBYism, right? When you're talking about who's going to live in what neighborhood, here or abroad, right? Changing demographics. That is not quiet white supremacy. That's not gentle white supremacy. That's white supremacy. End of line. And so I want to bring you two in, just get your thoughts on what we just watched.
I think one of the things that is very telling, and I might be wrong on this, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the first time when that blonde woman was talking about, said blatantly like, oh, these white Europeans and such, right? They're like, are you and me. That was the first time I've heard of this. The other one with that other guy saying that, I had heard before. Yeah. So, but I also am wondering, were there any consequences? It just seems like these people, they said these things and they just keep going, right? And I think that is one thing that is definitely stark, because oftentimes in the past, if someone says something really bad on TV, right, there are consequences to some extent, oftentimes, not all the time. And I think it just really shows that, it shows again how the military-industrial complex and the pro-war narrative is so powerful that different things that in other contexts would not be acceptable or they would do something about, they just sit aside and let it happen, because this is the number one priority. This is the number one way to serve the rich people. This is the number one way that white supremacy comes out. And it's not always obvious because it's not always happening here, right? Yeah. And so that's how I think is I think a lot of sort of why that is, and why we have gone from just like dog whistles to just straight up bullhorns right now when it comes to just all of these things that have been being said on national TV for many people to see.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that no, there will be no ramifications, and I'm going to say it straight up. Yeah. One of the reasons is because CNN's audience probably didn't notice that that was wrong.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of, grouping them as a whole, so maybe some did, but let's just be honest. Most of the people who watch MSM will not pick up on that, oh, white people. Like, it's not going to hit them as, whoa, that was fucked up. She shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with our culture as a whole, because so many of us don't realize when things like that are said that is fucking wrong. And it's not even that she said it, it's that she was thinking it and said it. Like she wasn't even gonna censor herself. She was thinking it and thought it was okay to say it on live TV. So
Yeah.
It's our thought processes as white people and as Americans, and
and
gross.
I think one thing I would add to that as well, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, the whole Russiagating thing that has been happening these past 6 years has made it that is the number one thing on everyone's mind right now. Never mind piecing together any broader context. The media, the Democrats, media, Clintons, all of them, they're all the same in a sense.
Yeah.
They have made it so that is inserted in their brain. We are fighting against Russia that is behind on everything that is malfunctioning in this country, right? And so when you do that, then you take away critical analysis of anyone to even say, oh, that was not an acceptable thing to say, because in many people's minds, it's cut and dry. We are the good guys. America is the good guys, and Russia is the bad guys. And no matter what we do at this point, we need to unite, because we are America, the best country on earth, right? And so that is how liberals have encarved American exceptionalism through Putin.
So I'm gonna, and jumping off of that one, before Russiagate, there was the constant demonization of every Black and brown society in the world. It's like Russiagate is not new for us, because we have had to watch ourselves be denigrated, and also the LGBTQ community, like I mentioned last time. Silence of the Lambs, the first time you see a supposed trans person in a mainstream movie, it's a murderer who's peeling the flesh off of people, right? The demonization of anyone who is not white, Christian, cis, het, and rich is so thorough that people identify, even people who are not in that group, right? Identify with those identities. Everybody's watching Friends, right? And that's the show that everybody's watching. Not considering the fact that the show Living Single was ripped off completely for Friends, but they weren't going to push a show that was all, relatively prosperous Black people, right? I mean, when I say the show was ripped off, when I say the show was ripped off, that's not an exaggeration. I mean, they took the whole thing, the setup, them all living near each other and being, it's the same thing. And nobody does know about it, because
Can I just say, Living Single was
so
a
much
way better show.
So much better.
How do Friends take place in New York City with no fucking Black people? But okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Anyway.
Thank you. No, don't be sorry. Exactly.
Ross dated a Black woman for a little bit.
He did. Tyler.
And Joey. I think they both.
In like 12
right.
years.
And that's the thing, is that for them, that was ultra progressive.
Right.
Yeah.
One Black person in the show in 300,000 episodes is ultra progressive. And that's the thing. They have made it so that when you see the Middle East, what do you see? You see war, you see chaos, you see catastrophe, and no discussion of the fact that war, chaos, and catastrophe is happening because of us, right? And it's not even and some people are oh yeah, well, at a certain point they have to take responsibility, maybe we did something, but it was already no. See, that's not what happened, right? You go back to Iran, everybody's so afraid of the Handmaid's Tale happening. We did the Handmaid's Tale to Iran starting in 1953 when we got rid of Mossadegh, right? He was ready to nationalize and socialize even the profits from their oil and take it away from the hands of Western powers. And they were like, how about we install a theocrat who will let us continue to take the oil because they'll get to stay rich and their oligarch buddies will get to stay rich and the people can suffer. We don't give a shit. So we did it.
And then who came after the Shah?
And who came after the Shah? Exactly. It just got worse and worse because, like you said
religious
earlier,
extremism. Yeah.
Religious extremism because the people see no hope. When people see no hope, they are willing to go to more and more extreme methods. And unfortunately, like white European America has been radicalized to that same level and they don't realize it. They've been radicalized to the point where they don't care about brown lives. That's why the slogan Black Lives Matter, I mean, it was supposed to be originally Black Lives Matter 2, but the word 2 was taken out. And that's why we have like all this discussion over it, whatever. Like, and so again, it's to say, if you think about what they say about the Middle East, you could just switch out that for the hood at any one of those sentences, right? Oh, well, I don't know. Like, what are you going to do? They live in, it's filthy there. And it's just so violent. And like those people, they're just so violent and there's just drugs and there's crime. And why is that? Because that's what they show you. Because not only do they, and you have the people on, you have your Fox, right? Which will straight up just say, Black people like to live in filth and squalor, like Tucker Carlson, who was like, these people like to live in open sewage about Middle Eastern people. He said that. Go look it up, right? And that's how it works, because we can't say that Democrats or Republicans are like they don't operate separately. One of them's not. They operate together. CNN will say something like, "You don't expect to see this. It's such a shock," and Fox will say, "This is how they live. This is how they are," and all of that drives the whole conversation further and further to the right, deeper into an acceptable level of racism, to where the Overton window is from those people are animals to, well, it's just like that there. And all of that is white supremacy, all of it, right? And so when you get over even into saying something like, hey, well, how did that get like that? Not even acceptable discourse, right? So, and we need to understand also that the reason that we're talking about this, I'm past getting white people to try and care about brown people. I'm over it. I'm tired. What we can do is get you to understand that you're being used against your own interests, because this imperialism does not benefit you. And it's making the world worse, because driver of climate change, war, the military-industrial complex, the biggest polluter. The American military is the biggest polluter, right? Basically, and now we're talking about the threat of nuclear war, right? Which, like, I will admit it. I did not think that Putin was going to go into Ukraine. I'll say it. I didn't think it was actually going to happen, And why did I not think that? Because I will look, a lot of leftists are so oppositional, understandably, to CNN and Fox and Western media that they become knee-jerk against anything that gets said there, right?
It's true.
We'll never go to nuclear war.
Yeah.
Putin ain't gonna do shit. Oh, Putin's not that bad, right? Where it's like, but here, those same people will talk about how bad billionaires are and talk about how unhinged, billionaires are and how they have too much power. Putin's a fucking billionaire lunatic. It's not like he's a good guy, right? And the people of Russia, I'm with it. I have in fact, I have a weird number of friends who were born in Russia, and some that were born in the Soviet Union. Like I read Cyrillic. Like I have a lot of attachments to Russian people and Russian culture. But there is no leader on this earth that is fucking trustworthy. None of them, especially not ones that have that kind of power, especially not ones who are on record as saying crazy imperialist shit too, right? Like that's not like he said it, right? So you don't have to. There can be no good guys in a situation, right? And conversely, it's both complicated and it's simple. Whatever the leaders say, fuck them, because they stand to gain. Whatever it is, they stand to gain. It's the people, right? If you want to, now this whole shit with people fucking getting all homosexual about Zelensky, it's so fucking embarrassing. Like, it's so embarrassing. Oh no, everybody's talking.
That.
You haven't?
It's
all over.
It's all over.
God, that
it's
is
all
so
over.
Fucking nasty.
They're
Why
like
would-
Fauciing Zelensky now. Yeah.
And Cuomoing, yes, yeah. And
Cuomo,
and here's the thing. Now, let me say this about Zelensky. For a leader, he has said some shit. Like one of his quotes is going to fucking go down in history. Mark my words. When they were like, "Do you need?" He's like, you know, they're like, "Are you going to evacuate? Like, do you need to get out?" And he's like, "No, I don't need a ride. I need ammunition." It's a banger of a quote. It's a fucking banger of a quote for a leader to say. Ooh, exactly. Yeah, but like, so I get it, right? I get it. But do you need to, if you want to lionize somebody, how about, I got one for you. There was a picture of a 60-year-old Ukrainian man who was like right on the edge where he could have evacuated. He showed up and was like, "Give me a gun. I'm going to defend my people. I'm going to defend my family." Right? And if you want to talk about supporting war or supporting any sort of like aggressive action, support the people who are defending their literal lands and lives and families. You don't need to defend power. Power doesn't ever need you to defend it. It has money. It has power. Whether or not Putin's a lunatic, you don't have to defend him. You could just save your words, right? People of Russia who are going to suffer, people of Ukraine who are going to suffer. Let the rule. Same thing. Elon Musk. You say something about Elon Musk in America, you get Elon Musk fanboys. They will come out of the woodwork to talk shit on you. You don't need to defend Elon Musk, baby. He's gonna be okay. You know, he's gonna be fine. And so
he will never be a billionaire. Why are you defending him?
Thank you. And it's funny because those would be the same people who will call people simps for like saying nice things about women. You know, they'll be like, "She's never gonna fuck you," right? It's like, yeah, you're never gonna be Elon Musk, okay?
Yeah.
You're never going to have that kind of money. And furthermore, the fact that you wanted or even could possibly desire that kind of money or power shows that they've already got to you. They've already got you against your own interest, because for there to be one billionaire, there have to be countless thousands of people suffering. That's just how it works.
You're not going to be him, and he's never going to care about you too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think, this is something that I think it's just big that we need to decolonize our minds. And I'll just bring this up briefly before we switch over to Joy. I want just to put this back in your head. When Notre Dame was on fire, right? Everybody was changing they're putting up, supporting Paris, changing their avatars, putting up the flag. And first of all, Notre Dame didn't burn to the ground. Okay.
Nope.
The most iconic parts of Notre Dame never got touched. The building's still there. It's fine. It's been repaired. They got so many billions of dollars in donations.
And they already had so much money. Why would you ever give the fucking Christian church money?
Oh my God.
Like, get the fuck out of here. But then
church, sorry.
Then you tax out of existence. And like, let's ask the Vatican what's in all those. Anyway.
Yeah. Seriously.
But then conversely, during that time, I lost friends for being like, the Notre Dame's probably going to be fine. But like, we have destroyed so many ancient mosques and churches, and also Christian churches in the Middle East, blowing them up, right? We're talking about the cradle of human history in some ways, right? And that his history is a part of our history too, right? But they're just like, well, first, that's irrelevant and it's callous to bring those up right now. And I'm like, well, I mean, you know, if you probably look at the news, one of them probably got blown up yesterday because of how much fucking explosions we send over to the Middle East somewhere or other, right? So it's relevant. And the same thing will happen right now if you try and redirect people's attention to, say, Yemen when they're talking about Ukraine, right? They'll say like, oh, that's callous to bring that up. I'm like, no, that's happening right now and it's worse. The whole country is literally encircled and being slowly constricted out of life. 20 million fucking people are going to probably die within the next year from starvation or from like dysentery or from, you know, if they don't die directly from the active bombings by Saudi Arabia with our money and with our weapons and operational assistance, right? And the fact that they can't leave, they can't get into the water because they're surrounded. They can't get across the border because that's Saudi Arabia, and on the other side, Oman, neither of which are friendly to them. That shit's the worst they're calling it a humanitarian crisis. No, it's siege warfare, but on a countrywide scale. Siege warfare is illegal, but there's no laws, I guess, if you do it to a whole country. And it's the same thing, right? It's not just there is whataboutism. It exists, right? It exists, and sure, but there is a kind of whataboutism that's valid. When you're talking about something that A, you can't do anything about, and B, look, Ukraine has the support of the most powerful military apparatuses in the world, right? All of Europe is right behind Ukraine. They're right there. They have eyes on. They support it. Who's Yemen got? Who's got Yemen? You know, all the people that run the delis in my area are from Yemen. I asked one of them about, you know, they recently went back to their country, which you can do if you have money. And like a lot of the deli, they make enough money that they're like wealthy in Yemen, right? They go back, and he was telling me about how he had to fly into a different airport because the airport near his house was destroyed. So it used to be a 30-minute drive from the airport near his house. Now he's got to drive 13 hours from another airport to get to his house.
Wow.
And he had tears in his eyes, not because he was angry at me for bringing it up. He had tears in his eyes because he was happy that somebody had ever asked him about it. Because nobody ever asked him. No one fucking cares. And that shit, you want to talk, if you want to appeal to empathy, if you want to say we need to care about the people of Yemen and you're going to back up like the fucking drum beats of war, your empathy is lacking if you don't see that there are things that are worse, that there are whataboutisms that are worse, right? What about black on black crime? That's bullshit. That's white supremacy, right? Because number one, when black people do crimes, they go to jail. But when someone does something to people in Yemen, not a damn thing happens. Not a damn thing. People don't even know it's happening. We bombed Somalia. This was 2-3 days ago, you know? Nothing. So we have to decolonize our own minds because, again, a lot of people, and I mean like good people, right? Like not just some group that I want to demonize, but like a lot of my friends maybe watched it and it didn't even occur to them because you're so fucking used to it. And you know, we have a lot of work to do. So always push back against these narratives, whether they're against Middle Eastern people, black people, indigenous people, because that is propaganda. That's propaganda that in the end is going to rebound on you in some way or other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that will bring us to Joy.
Oh, so yeah, you guys know I'm not exactly a huge fan of Tulsi for many reasons. But you know, she's still got a lot of stands, or Tulsels, as people call them. I'm not, you know, it's interesting to watch the mental twister people go through to try and defend anything she says or does, all of her disgusting, racist, and xenophobic tweets and comments, all of her homophobic and transphobic tweets and comments. But she didn't mean it that way. And if you look at it this way, she actually, but that doesn't matter because she voted for a bill to help gay people back in 10 years ago. And Bitch, I don't give a fuck. She's doing that now. So, Andrew, first let's show the meme type, not the meme, but the picture of the benefit. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, this is what Tulsi spoke at. Now, here's the thing. First thing you notice is, okay, Glenn Beck. All right. Well, she's cozy with people like that. So that didn't really like throw me. It's a Ronald Reagan benefit. Okay. It costs money, a lot of money.
$375.
At a place that's incredibly wealthy. And it's sold out. Sold out. And
I see what you did there.
You know, you look at this and you're like, okay, Miss, I'm against regime change wars 24/7 it's a Ronald Reagan fucking event, okay? Like, that is, like, to me, that's, I don't fucking need to know anything else. But okay, so Andrew, you want to show a couple of the comments I got when I said, all I said was aloha with a fucking hibiscus. That's all I said. That's it. And these are some of the comments. You people are crazy.
Aloha.
He ain't gonna fuck you.
I actually watched her speech, and most things she said was aligned with leftist values. I beg to differ as someone who watched a good portion of it. Keep paddling purity tests like your life depends on it is generally not recommended as healthy behavior. Peace out, Joy.
So, saying somebody should not speak at a fucking Reagan dinner is a purity test. That's a purity test now. And first of all, mostly left, that don't mean shit to me. I don't even call myself a fucking leftist. I'm a free-thinking independent. I don't give a fuck. And guess what? When she ran in 2020, she wasn't even a fucking leftist then. No Medicare for all, no Green New Deal, no federal jobs guarantee, no free college tuition. The list goes on. So no, it's, oh, she was kind of left now. Unless she changed overnight, no.
Yeah.
Andrew, you can go to the next one. And I hope they're watching too.
Yeah. I'm just gonna add that every time she mentioned it, like you said, she said regime change wars, but she always made sure to say regime change wars because she's not against war. She's only against one kind.
Exactly.
She's not against torture either.
Exactly.
She never said the word imperialism or anything like that. It was always regime change war.
Yeah.
One of you guys want to read this?
Yeah.
Sure.
You want to, Logan?
All right. You know her speech will be about unity. And Joy responded, you need to go to a Ronald Reagan event by Coach, which costs money to discuss unity with warmongers. And the response is, since when are the Dems peace doves? The idea is to promote a reconciliation and to stop this crazy Blue Anon versus QAnon. Yeah.
I'm not creating unity with people who are fucking Reaganites. Sorry. Yeah. Like, no, you are not. Okay, let's just say this. Okay, first of all, you are not anti-war if you endorse Biden instead of Bernie. No, Biden was not the only person left. No, he was not. Yeah. So when people say, well, Biden endorsed or Bernie endorsed Biden, yeah, there was no one left. And trust me, it pisses me off. But Tulsi was different because there were two people left when she dropped out. And she endorsed Biden the same fucking day. Mm-hmm. She could have waited and not endorsed anyone, or she could have endorsed the person who she supposedly considers her friend. Mm-hmm. But no, the day she dropped out, she gave a speech about how Biden's going to lead the country right and blah, blah, blah. And he's a fucking warmonger. So I mean, she's been showing her true colors for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I keep hoping, are these people ever going to fucking wake up? But apparently they're not. And then Andrew, there's this article he linked to, that she's going to promote unity. Okay, well, I guess I'll just go to a fucking KKK rally to try and
Promote unity.
I'll be like,
Hilarious.
kumbaya, motherfuckers. It's okay. It's all right. We're all one. Let's unify.
Gabbard's message to CPAC. Can't we all just get along? The 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful will make a plea for unity at the conference for GOP activists. Do you want me to read the article? Or?
Yeah, just even the beginning with her quotes.
With panels like Don Lemon is a dinosaur and Are You Ready to Be Called a Racist? The Conservative Political Action Conference is the last place you'd go to hear a talk on unity. But that's 2020 presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard's message for the petri dish of the conservative movement. I'm going to talk about the need for us to actually treat each other with respect and end this tribalism and divisiveness that's tearing us apart, the former congresswoman said during a phone call from Florida, previewing her Friday speech at the conservative Shing-Ding in Orlando. I think the fact that, the announcement of my coming to speak at CPAC resulted in some pretty ugly, strong-worded, even vile attacks from people on both the left and the right, she added, is kind of indicative of this problem. Gabbard is not wrong about the reaction to her special guest status at the annual Ronald Reagan dinner, where she headlining alongside Glenn Beck. I want to know what business she has here, said attendee Kim Donaldson, a nurse from Atlanta, who called Gabbard's presence at the conservative conference weird.
Yeah,
She should switch parties or make a good explanation as to why she's making so nice with the Republicans. Gabbard says she's still a Democrat despite embracing culture war issues popular among the right and criticizing Joe Biden on foreign policy. As a 4-term congresswoman from Hawaii and Iraq war veteran, she demanded that then Obama use the word radical Islam when talking terrorism. She also bucked her party in 2016 by endorsing President Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, which was probably the best thing she did ever.
That's how she got us to believe in her.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
She's the best Democrat we know, said attendee Lars Lice from Wisconsin. She has a square head on her shoulders, sees the world in an objective manner. That's a strange statement to make. But Gabbard is also it's like that's not usually a compliment, but
a square head. I don't think I've ever heard that.
It's an old school saying.
Yeah.
It's like a blockhead. Like a blockhead's actually.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I was like, you're calling her dumb. But yeah.
That just shows you how old that person is.
Yeah, right? That's it. But Gabbard has also been in alignment with the party on issues that rankle the right, such as Medicare for all, not really, free community college, gun control, and climate change. When asked whether her speech really tailored to the crowd, it definitely was. Gabbard, who is not the first Democrat to speak at the event, who else spoke? I'm coming here with a message, and if people like it or people don't like it, that's up to them. CPAC has long been a place for conservative thinkers, Republican politicians and journalists to take the temperature of the GOP activists set. And the fever on the ground since 2016 has been for Trump. Gabbard has criticized Trump, calling him unfit to serve. She probably wouldn't say that today. And she wouldn't say if she will be critical of the conference's keynote speaker. Look at 2 repulsive individuals in this picture.
And
wow.
Both of them are assets. And I'll say that when you're done, I'm going to tell you, I've been waiting to talk about Tulsi for quite some time.
Oh, we could do a whole damn show about her. The thing about this is that it is so predictable. She showed her true colors so long ago. People just didn't want to believe it, and sometimes they still don't now. Stop trying to convince yourself someone is something they're not. Just because someone says they're anti-regime change war, when they don't come out and speak on things that are happening right now, like I don't mean right now, but I mean in the past, I think she
next she runs as a GOP.
I saying for 2 years she's running for Republican presidency in 2024, and you know what? She's gonna fucking do well. She will. And you know, if you watch even the way she campaigned in 2020, when she would go on these shows, like, I don't really give a shit about people going on Fox News and stuff. It doesn't bother me because you have to, you know, you're having everyone vote for you. So I get that. But when she would go on like Republican shows and stuff, she would absolutely talk just like them. They would say, Tulsi, you're the only one who doesn't support open borders. And she'd say, I am. Bitch, nobody supported open borders. Not one single presidential candidate. None.
Yeah.
But she would use that. And she would talk about God and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. It's just pandering. She wants those conservatives. And what I reminded Andrew before we went live is Richard Spencer endorsed her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I remember she went on Dave Rubin, and it was so clear, you know, Dave Rubin the whole time was just like, oh, the Democrats have gone so far left. He said something along the lines of that. And she's like, I know they have completely changed and you know, gone so far left. And then there were people, I'm not going to say who, but there were people who actually defended that. People in leftist space. I'm like, I don't know how you could possibly defend that. I mean, that was pretty despicable.
Because they want to. They don't want to believe someone that they love so much is just nothing like what they said they were. Like Bernie, you can talk about him. Yeah, he pisses me the hell off. I want to shake him, but he's still the same fucking dude for 40 years. He still brought up these, you know, he still made things like Medicare for All talking points that he still created millions of volunteers. He still turned people into activists. He still did these things. With Tulsi, she has been a conservative her entire life. That is how she has been raised.
Not just a conservative, but like a deep right winger. Yeah. Yeah.
And she has incredibly troubling views. From her praise of Assad and you know, her family's connection to like some really awful dictators.
Narendra Modi.
Modi.
Should not be a surprise. Logan, what were you gonna say?
Ooh, okay. So I'm gonna just put on my tinfoil hat for a second. Just
you think the Dems center there? I do too.
I mean, I don't Dem Republic. I don't know who sent her there, but she was an op from day one.
No question.
Because she was there. I knew people who were saying, "Oh, well, like, you know, I know so many people who switched from Bernie to Tulsi because they were disappointed in him from then endorsing Clinton." Right, as if that wasn't like his only fucking option, right? But they're like, well, or like, oh, you know, I'm for Bernie or Tulsi, right? Because you have like Bernie Warren people and you'd have Bernie Tulsi people, right? And Bernie Tulsi people leaned independent or a little right, and Bernie Warren people were like, you know, independent or Dem, right? And I think that Warren and Tulsi are who really cost Bernie the nomination.
Absolutely.
And nobody was willing to say it. And here's the thing. The way that she was campaigning, she would do this thing where like she would have her workouts where she would do her like Tulsi workout and like, you know, she's just wearing a regular workout outfit and like there was nothing overtly sexual about it. But like, you know how these fanboys be. And you know this is something that they've never seen from a mainstream politician, and how much this world sexualizes women, right? To the point where it's like, I mean, where ordinarily, like if that had been a Democrat that they didn't like, they would have been like, do you see these things? It's scandalous. But she was military, right? Yep. She was military. And she was respectable in a lot of ways that Republicans found respectable, right? And like, look, I'm in no way like slut shaming. I'm like, if you want to fucking campaign ass naked, like you should, right? But like, just be about what you're about. Don't try and be sneaky. And that's the shit about it. The way that she speaks is very measured, and it's very she sounds like she's like, I know that she was, she's a veteran, but I think that she's got something to do with some kind of intelligence apparatus. I don't know. But here's the thing, right? The other thing, though, is that she said a bunch of things that people wanted to hear. They needed somebody after they had been disappointed by Bernie. There are a lot of leftists, and I'm going to say this, and I say this with nothing but love. You have had your brains broken by mainstream media, and in the opposite way as the average American has. Since you see through the lies of mainstream media, you think everything they say is a lie. And you only will go to people who refuse, who say something that's against it. And if it's somebody new, even better, right? Because if somebody has a history at all, that you can find one thing, and here's the other thing. People were willing to, like we were talking about earlier, the fact that she was definitely in leagues with Narendra Modi and the BPP, which is basically like the Indian KKK, right? They're Hindu nationalists. It's not like some light duty party. Look that shit up, right? And of course, she said like, "Oh, I'm not down with them anymore." But it was smoke and mirrors, right? She did not change her views.
She literally said, "Welcome to our country," like a few months ago.
Yes.
And did a selfie and shared a selfie with him.
Yeah,
she's fucking full of shit.
She's a fucking op. And the thing is, and here's the thing, is that unfortunately, the same leftists, they are so like they're so entrenched in this now, right? And there's no one left to believe in. And so what they should be doing, as like it happened to me too, right? Like I get it, but I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe the thing is that we shouldn't be looking to any politicians. No one in that sphere is worth trusting. And we have to start just looking to the people. We got to look to the old Black Panther methods. We got to look to the old indigenous methods. We got to look at the people, because none of these fucking ghouls that get to that level of power, with the exception of somebody who like, look, again, I'm off Team Bernard at this point, but like, if you want to talk about somebody with a history of doing the thing that they say to do, get into politics, win some races, and do the thing. He did the thing. None of these other new people, they didn't have time to do the thing. Why do you trust them more than somebody who actually has a track record, right? And if you can't trust that person with a track record, why are you trusting this new person that has sketchy shit going on and they've only been in politics for like 10 years, right? It's like, you're not being intellectually consistent. And why is that? Because I'm going to use a little tiny astrology thing. Look, everybody has some Neptune in the chart, and Neptune is both belief and delusion. People get delusional. Everybody's delusional about something, right? And this is one of the problems in like left spheres at the moment, is that they just want to fight against whatever the mainstream thing is, right? It's like those people who are like, oh yeah, like I don't like any mainstream bands. Like I only like the underground bands. And if the band gets popular, then they're like, fuck that band, right? It's the same thing, except for like in the political sphere. And it's like, okay, look, do you like the music or not? Do you believe what you believe or not? What do you believe, right? And is your goal in life to be oppositional? Or is it to actually accomplish something? And I think for a lot of these people, it's just to become oppositional. And if you're oppositional to the most popular mainstream things, a lot of the most popular mainstream things that are okay to say are Democrat things. And when you start being oppositional to those, a lot of the times the problem is not that they're wrong, it's that they don't believe it and that they're lying. So when you become oppositional to something that's like factually correct, you're on dangerous fucking ground. And that's why there's a lot of this red-brown alliance shit, where it's like there's arguments over whether or not, and like I agree with you, Joy, like if you're a politician running for office, you got to go anywhere you can go where they'll have you. You just like, right? Like that, it makes sense. But if you're anyone but a politician, you gotta not talk to certain people. You should not have pictures with certain people. They're gonna use that against you. You take one picture with a Dave Rubin or a Tucker Carlson or any of those fucking ghouls. They're gonna be like, see, this person agrees with us. And what is that doing? You're dragging the country to the right. It's a third way of dragging the country to the right. And all this useful idiot talk that they talk about, like with Russia, it's unfortunately some leftists who have not only good hearts, but good minds that just can't bear to agree with something that a Democrat has ever said, right? You can't say, that's true, you're a piece of shit, right? You can't even say that, right? It's got to be like, it's not, no, fuck that, it's not true. So it's a shame. It's really a shame. And I mean, one more thing is that people have a hard time admitting they were wrong. That's really when it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not just verbally admitting you're wrong. It's admitting that you believed in someone.
Yeah.
Like people are, in that post I made, people were very sad. There were several comments were like, wow, she really disappointed me and stuff like that. Like you invest spiritually, emotionally, monetarily, whatever in these people because you are searching for something, because you are so defeated and so hopeless politically, things like that. But then also I want to say too, before I go to Andrew, your girl literally dropped and didn't run again. So how much is she fighting for you? Because she dropped. She said, I'm not running again. Why? She said, because I want to be free for when I win presidency. You had one delegate. You're not winning presidency. You're quitting. You're not even staying in office.
Right.
So why are you crediting this person who literally just gave up a seat, who could be a person voting in favor of X, Y, and Z or against X, Y, and Z, and you're giving them props? She abandoned your ass. Wake up.
Yeah, well, maybe what you said earlier is right. Maybe like when oh no, if she runs as a Republican, she might get a lot of their votes. Oh no, I don't like that.
She will. She will do way better as a Republican than a Dem. Way better.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's not good.
Not
good. What's your hot take?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting what Logan said, where you think that she really was one of the main things that stopped Bernie in the 2020 primary. I mean, she kind of going off like she didn't really do well as a Democratic candidate. I mean, when it came to the primary, she got like 1-2% in many states and stuff. So I'm not sure. I think Warren definitely played a huge role, and Bernie, not winning at the end.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, when I say that, I'm talking about she took volunteers and on the ground work from the Bernie campaign, because that was more of what I saw. In terms of votes, it was definitely more Warren, but in terms of activism and energy, that's
interesting. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. And I honestly didn't really pay too much attention to her. Well, I know some of her.
Well, as someone who campaigned for Bernard for 5 weeks in Iowa, I can tell you I never met a damn supporter of her in my damn life. And I even was at caucus on a college campus, and she had 0 people show up for her in Iowa City University.
Yeah.
It's true. Anyway, sorry, Andrew.
Yeah. No worries. I mean, I think mostly everything has sort of been said about her. I mean, it was clear. I think what maybe some people, because I always want to try and take it in is, it's similar to kind of like people who are loyalists to the squad, right? Some people, it's really just very hard to come to terms with someone who you have invested so much energy in to say, maybe that was a waste of my time. Maybe I could have spent that a better way. And I think in some cases, I think that is true with some people, to be charitable with Tulsi, right?
Yeah.
There were some people, I think, who really were itching for someone to finally call out American imperialism, right? The military industrial complex, right? And, you know, I'm not blaming Bernie for the rise of Tulsi at anything, but, you know, Bernie definitely did not go nearly as hard as he should have against the military industrial complex, right?
Absolutely.
And so, right. And so I think for some select people, clearly not that many, right? Because as we're talking about, but for some select people who are really dedicated in politics, she filled that void for them. And it made it easy for some people. Let's be real. Some of those leftists do not care about race, right? And they're fucking racists, right? Like, and she definitely struck a chord with that crowd, right? But some people, I think, were willing to sometimes put some of that aside that went against either their values because they were desperate for those things, right? And that's not making an excuse for them. That's just human nature and how those things happen. Because so that's, I think, kind of where I think overall the Tulsi thing went about.
Absolutely. I and just to make it clear, like, I'm not shitting on people for believing in her, because, you know, I get it. You know, I mean,
some people should be shat on a little bit.
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying that, right? I'm just, you know, I think as usual, right? It's all nuanced and people are complex. So trying to, you know, address all the different.
I mean, I met Tulsi a few years back and I was like, look, I'm going to be 100% honest. In 2016, when I wrote Bernard in, I wrote her as VP. And that was because of what she did.
Yeah.
Now I think it was just her saying, I'm going to win you. And but back then, you know, and when I met her, I told her, you know, I'm an activist, and I met her in Harrisburg, PA, and I said, I'm a local activist, and, you know, I wrote you in as VP, and she was so kind and, you know, gave me a huge hug, and she said it was an honor and stuff. And she really, like, I really genuinely liked her because she was very personable and stuff like that. But then I started seeing this change in how her demeanor even changed when I looked at her on interviews and stuff like that. And then here's something, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I just want to say, this has nothing to do with why I criticize her, but she was to come on my show, and when she found out, I then became that I was a hardcore burner and I was Bernie all the way, and I had criticisms of her. She decided not to come on them.
She Anna Kasparian'd you.
Anna Kasparian me. Totally. Totally. Like, it was set up with her campaign manager. Like, it was.
Wow.
Yeah, and I know who the person was who told her that I had criticisms and everything, because I know him from the Bernie campaign. Yeah, so she just backed out, and I'm like, well, you know, I mean, what am I going to do? But I didn't publicize it because I don't want people to, you know, to say, now I criticize her and you're just salty because she didn't come on your show. No, like, I really don't give a fuck. I still think she sucks.
But
like,
I think, but that's the thing. I think that is, I mean, you know, that is a red flag, right? If you can't talk to somebody who even has some criticisms of you, and you take it so personally, then that does make you wonder, like, okay, why are you? And then you're willing to talk to a far right commentator, right?
And be buddy.
So it's like, okay.
And also, I know some of you guys have issues with Humanist Report, but Mike Figueredo is a very good friend of mine still, and she did the same thing to him. He did a show about, her anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ, and her pro-torture and stuff like that, from articles that were being released. And she caught wind of it, or she saw it, or what have you. And her campaign manager reached out and was like, we saw some of the stuff you said and blah, blah, blah. And, basically kind of shamed him for saying that. And Mike said, she's welcome to come on and we can discuss it. And if she wants to, counter anything I said, I am so open. And they agreed, and then they never followed up.
Mm-hmm.
So are you really that interested in trying to clear your name? Mike is a gay man who is telling you the things you have said are offensive, and you don't want to go on and have discourse with him. Yeah, that I don't really like that.
I hear that. Well,
we could go on forever. This show goes
actually
we've been going a while. So any last thoughts?
We need media literacy that includes an intersectional lens, and I think that goes through all the topics we discussed tonight, because there would have been no excusing Tulsi if you were thinking about Muslims, or if you were thinking about trans people, and if you were thinking about brown people, you would not let people get away with the shit that's said in some of these things, and you would care more about. And by the way, just before anybody says it, like, a lot of those African people have gotten into other countries and have at this point been allowed to cross over. So just adding that as like a bit of just like as a point of information, right? But media literacy also, I think we have to start including things like searching Twitter. Like Twitter's a good source. You just have to not take one thing and be like, this is it, right? You have to put in some time. You have to do what we do. You got to aggregate some shit. But if you have like 30 different people on the ground saying something, you're right. You don't need a New York Times article, because you're probably not going to get one about some topics.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you have coming up, Logan?
This week I will be releasing the podcast episode I recorded with the amazing astrologer Jessica Lanyadoo. We went pretty deep on some really huge stuff, and that's the main thing I have. I'm going to be recording an episode this Saturday with Malumbo, who you don't know his name, but if you've ever seen the videos where it's this guy, he's black and he has dreads, and it's like a far right person, then a right wing person, then a center right person, then I'm gonna have a conversation with him this Saturday, and we're gonna talk about his actual politics and why he does that series when it's clear that he's probably like fully far right. And I'm gonna be talking to a few other like TikTokers, and doing some more things like that. So yeah, keep an eye out. My link should be below my name. Link linktr.ee/FOILG. That will take you everywhere that I am on the net.
Awesome. And Andrew, in case you didn't, can you put the link to the article with the deaths of each war?
Yes, definitely.
And Andrew, any last thoughts, and also what you got going on?
I'll say, I think Twitter can be a great source of information, and don't be afraid to mute certain accounts that are just spouting a lot of noise and not really doing much substance, because you might find that your timeline might actually clean up a little bit, and you might feel a little less all over the place with it. So things coming up. Find me on. So actually, recently, me, Ludin, and Z did a quick take on some of the things that have been happening with the MPP party. So feel free to check that out. And I think we're going to continue to be delving in and talking a little bit this too, because I think this is an important conversation to have. regarding a lot of the things that are going on there, because I think it gets down to a lot of electoralism and just how we kind of go through. It's late. Yeah, just freaking check it out. And then
stuff I can send you.
what?
I got the contacts. I have some stuff I can send you.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
I know some people, stuff goes on and they're like, joy.
Right. So, yeah, for sure. And then what else? Yeah, that's mostly everything going on right now. Sorry, I closed out of that link that I sent, so I'm trying to look for it as I speak. But
it's all good. But thank you so much for your research tonight. You always do a great job, but tonight was particularly awesome. I've never seen a breakdown, so to speak, of numbers like that, and it really puts things into perspective. As far as myself, as you can see, my meme thing, I am doing, I'm co-organizing 3 days of a virtual National Medicare for All Forum coming up in a week and a half. And it is ridiculously awesome. Like, I'll be hosting most of the shows, but we're going to have panels on racial disparities in healthcare, which Logan will be joining. We're going to have tons of healthcare workers. We're going to have a disability disparity panel. We're going to have environmentalism and healthcare panel. Literally every single aspect of healthcare is going to be addressed in panels, and we're keeping it activists, healthcare workers, things like that. We're not trying to do like the big name thing, like a lot of our marches where this is going to be a very, educational event. Interviewing a lot of doctors. We're going to have a panel on international healthcare, things like that. So it's just going to be awesome. And we're also going to throw in some musicians here and there and stuff like that. But yeah, so definitely tune into that. I was asked, and also check out Savvy Sab's women's panel for Saturday night. I was on their healthcare panel at 7 p.m. It was great. I was with my girl Marianne Williamson and some other great women. And I was just asked to be on the International Women's Panel on the 8th on Revolutionary Blackout Network. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So yeah, lots of fun stuff coming up. And of course, I have some other shows this week, and you can tune in every Monday to find us here, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So thank you all so much for watching. You guys are freaking awesome. And feel free to follow us all on social media. And also for the event, we are, for the National Medicare for All event we're doing now. By national, I mean we do not support state by state. We do not support incrementalism. So if you support National Medicare for All, meaning literally everyone, you can send in a 3 to 4 minute cameo if you want, just a little video about, if you have a story or what it would mean to you to finally have a dental care or vision, or not have to worry about having, any medical bills, anything like that. We are collecting those videos, which we will air that weekend on the forum. So my Twitter DMs are open. So please, and that sounds bad. So please, yeah, but don't send those kinds of videos, please, unless I ask.
Oh my God. And on that note,
shut me up after like a couple minutes. Just be like, George.
Because it's really funny when we don't. Is the answer to that. All right.
Oh
good night, everyone. Much love to you.
Thank you all so much for watching. And yes, my DMs are open.
Good night, everyone.